Stop lying to yourself. The person you're waiting for, the one you love, the one you think will come back, is gone. They're not the same, and wishing for the old version is stealing your time, your energy, your life. Every second you hope for someone to regress is a second you're not growing, not leveling up, not creating the life you deserve. If you want real freedom, real growth, you have to stop chasing ghosts and start facing reality today. Most people are stuck in a loop waiting for others to be the people they used to be. They replay old memories in their minds, thinking that if they just wait long enough, the person they loved will return exactly as they were. But life doesn't work that way. People evolve, they shift, they adapt, or they don't, and expecting them to step back into a previous version is a recipe for disappointment. Every moment you spend waiting for someone to revert to their past self is a moment you're neglecting your own growth. You're clinging to what was comfortable, familiar, and predictable instead of seeing what is real right now. Change is inevitable, and resisting it only keeps you in a loop of frustration and pain. Your expectations are not a magic wand that rewrites reality. Accepting the present version of people is not about giving up, it's about seeing clearly. You cannot control who they are today, but you can control how you respond. When someone changes, it often triggers discomfort because our brains are wired to resist the unknown. We want people to be predictable, to act the way they acted before, so we feel safe. But safety is an illusion when it comes to relationships. Expecting someone to be their old self is not love, it's nostalgia disguised as hope. You are putting your peace in the hands of someone else's growth or stagnation. And the truth is, no one owes you the person they used to be. People who are committed to their own evolution will move forward, not backward, and people who are not capable of growth will stay exactly where they are. Either way, clinging to the old version is a trap. Recognize that the past has already passed, and your energy is far too valuable to invest in a shadow. Reality doesn't negotiate with memory. When you insist on expecting old versions, you are refusing to meet people where they are. You're demanding that life pause so that your comfort zone remains intact. That's not fair to you, and it's certainly not fair to them. You cannot anchor your happiness in someone else's regression. Expecting someone to step backward is the opposite of respect for them and for yourself. Growth is forward. Moving by definition, it cannot reverse without cost. Every interaction where you expect the old version is an interaction steeped in disappointment. You train yourself to be reactive rather than proactive, waiting for a ghost instead of creating your own reality. This creates tension in relationships, resentment, and emotional fatigue. Stop waiting and start seeing clearly. The harsh truth is, people don't come back the way they were because life has shaped them differently. Every experience, every choice, every heartbreak, and every triumph leaves an imprint. You are not the same person you were 5 years ago, and neither is anyone else. Expecting someone to be the same denies the very process of human development. It's a disservice to yourself and a denial of reality. When you embrace the current version of people, you gain clarity. You see who they really are, not who you wish them to be. You start making decisions based on fact, not fantasy. This is not pessimism, this is empowerment. Your life can only move forward when you stop projecting the past onto the present. Many people confuse familiarity with love. They say they miss the person they knew, but what they really miss is the comfort of predictability. They are not missing the person. They are missing a version of themselves when that person existed. That's why waiting for the old version is futile. People are dynamic. They are shaped by circumstances and experiences you may never understand. If you insist on holding them to a previous standard, you are punishing both them and yourself. Life demands adaptation. Relationships demand presence. You cannot engage with someone who is changing if you are obsessed with a memory. Recognizing this allows you to recalibrate expectations. You begin to engage consciously, not nostalgically, and this is where growth happens. It is not weakness to release outdated expectations. It is strength. The people you loved yesterday are not obligated to be the same today. When you accept that reality, you reclaim your power. You stop being a victim of your own longing. Waiting for someone to be who they were is an avoidance strategy. It is easier to live in memories than face the uncertainty of now. But the present is where influence exists, where energy can be applied, and where life can be lived intentionally. You cannot act in the present if your mind is trapped in the past. Letting go of who someone used to be is an act of self-respect. It is an acknowledgement that your growth matters more than your attachment to nostalgia. Expectations are like anchors. They either stabilize or sink you. Anchoring yourself in someone else's old version is dangerous. It keeps you stuck, frustrated, and dependent on factors outside your control. Life rewards those who respond, not those who wait. When you see people as they are today, you can make choices that align with your growth. You stop chasing ghosts and start building reality. Your time is finite. Wasting it on what oozed to be is self-sabotage. Every conversation, every interaction, and every relationship deserves clarity. Ask yourself, am I interacting with the person as they are? or the person I hope they were. The answer determines your trajectory. The energy you invest in holding someone to their past is energy stolen from your own potential. You could spend that energy building skills, cultivating relationships with people who are present, and creating a life that aligns with your vision. Nostalgia is seductive because it feels safe, but safety is not progress. People change, expectations must change too. Clinging to old versions is a form of denial, refusal to embrace reality, and reality does not wait for anyone. You must step forward, acknowledging the current versions of people around you. That is the path to empowerment. The moment you stop projecting the past, you open up space for connection, growth, and opportunity. It's easy to convince yourself that people will return to being the old versions you loved. Social media, old photos, shared memories, and conversations all feed this illusion. But illusions are fragile and dangerous. Real strength is seeing things clearly without filters or wishful thinking. People evolve on their own timeline, and your attachment cannot control that. Expecting them to revert is not hope, it is resistance. It is a refusal to meet life as it is. When you embrace the current version of someone, you create space for authentic interactions. You interact based on reality, not fantasy. That clarity protects your energy and strengthens your emotional resilience. Waiting for old versions often stems from fear of loss, fear of change, fear of uncertainty. But fear is not a compass, it is a trap. The more you cling to the past, the more you hinder your own evolution. Life rewards clarity and decisive action. Accepting people as they are is not about lowering standards, it's about seeing clearly, adjusting boundaries, and making empowered decisions. Your happiness should not depend on someone regressing to a version you preferred. It should depend on your ability to navigate reality. Growth is uncomfortable, but clinging to old versions ensures stagnation. Embrace reality even when it stings, because that is where freedom lies. Every interaction with someone is an opportunity to witness their current self. If you are obsessed with the past, you miss that opportunity. You miss the chance to engage authentically, to create meaningful experiences, and to build relationships based on truth. The old version of someone is gone. Your expectation that they will return is a projection of your own desires, not a reflection of reality. Recognize this. See people clearly. Respond to them as they are, not as they were. That clarity is transformative. It shifts your focus from longing and frustration to action and empowerment. Your energy should be invested in what is real, not what is imagined. The moment you stop expecting old versions of people to return, you reclaim your time, your energy, and your peace. You stop living in a world of shadows and step into the present. This is not about cynicism, it is about awareness. Life is moving and people are evolving. Your attachment to the past is voluntary. You can release it. When you do, you free yourself to engage with reality, embrace growth, and connect authentically. You no longer chase ghosts. You interact with living, breathing people. That shift is radical, empowering, and transformative. It is the key to building relationships that are real, supportive, and aligned with the life you are creating. Nostalgia is seductive. It tricks your mind into thinking that the past holds the answers to your present. You convince yourself that if only people acted like they did before, everything would be fine. But nostalgia is a trap. It keeps you frozen, stuck in a loop where nothing changes. The version of people you remember never existed in the way you imagine. Memories are selective, highlighting the moments that made you comfortable, safe, or happy, while erasing the conflicts, the struggles, and the truths that shaped them. Holding on to these memories is like trying to live in a photograph, waiting for the living, breathing person to step out of it. Life doesn't work that way. People evolve, circumstances change, and clinging to old versions keeps you trapped in illusions. You must recognize nostalgia for what it is, a mental trick that stops your growth and drains your energy. The problem with nostalgia is that it clouds your judgment. You start interpreting current behaviors through the lens of past expectations. You expect loyalty from someone who has outgrown the relationship. You expect understanding from someone whose priorities have shifted. You expect the same energy, the same commitment, the same version of a person who no longer exists. This distorted lens creates frustration, disappointment, and unnecessary conflict. People are not obligated to be who they once were. Waiting for them to return is a form of self-deception. You are letting memory dictate your reality. Every time you cling to what was, you are blind to what is. And the world doesn't wait for your illusions. Expecting people to return to their old versions is a form of resistance. It is a refusal to accept change both in them and in yourself. Change is inevitable whether you embrace it or resist it. When you live in the past, you are choosing comfort over growth. You are choosing fantasy over reality. Every second spent waiting for someone to be who they were is a second wasted on stagnation. Real power comes from seeing clearly, acknowledging who people are today, and acting from that understanding. Growth is forward moving. You cannot retroactively create alignment with a past that no longer exists. Holding on only ensures that your energy is siphoned into disappointment, regret, and longing. Nostalgia also masks the truth about the past. We tend to remember only the good moments, the times when people align with our desires. We erase the fights, the betrayals, the disappointments, and the behaviors that made us uncomfortable. When we idealize the past, we rewrite history to suit our narrative. This selective memory creates a false expectation that someone will revert to that edited version of themselves. But the truth is that person was never perfect. The moments you miss are often cherry-picked illusions that ignore reality. When you cling to that illusion, you are not seeking truth, you are seeking comfort. And comfort will never move you forward. Real growth demands facing reality, not pretending it aligns with your memories. Every relationship has a present version, whether you like it or not. The person in front of you is not the person you fell in love with years ago. Their values, priorities, and behavior have shifted, and expecting them to revert is selfish. It ignores the evolution they have gone through. You cannot base your happiness on regression. Waiting for old versions robs you of the chance to engage authentically with the current version. When you stop projecting nostalgia, you start to see opportunities, alignments, and truths that were invisible before. This is not rejection, it is clarity. When your energy aligns with reality, you can create relationships that are real, intentional, and mutually beneficial. Many people confuse nostalgia with hope. They call it hope that someone will come back to the way they used to be. But hope is passive, waiting for something external to happen. Nostalgia is passive too, but it is a disguised form of attachment, a tether to the past that prevents movement. True hope is active. It is based on reality, not memory. True hope is about making decisions in alignment with what is, not what was. When you cling to old versions, you are hoping for something impossible. You are projecting an idealized past onto a person who cannot meet it. This disconnect creates frustration and stagnation, keeping you from growth and authentic engagement. The danger of nostalgia is not just in waiting for others, it is in ignoring your own evolution. While you are obsessing over old versions of people, you are neglecting your own growth. You are stuck in a loop of longing and resistance, refusing to act in your own life. Your time, energy, and focus are limited resources. Investing them in illusions ensures that nothing meaningful happens. People who are evolving do not wait for your approval. They do not regress to satisfy your longing. When you hold on to nostalgic expectations, you are sabotaging your own potential. You must release old versions to make space for your own forward movement. Nostalgia also fuels comparison. You compare the current person to the past version as if their worth is determined by how closely they resemble your memory. This is unfair and unrealistic. People are dynamic. They cannot exist on a static timeline to satisfy your emotional needs. Comparison creates resentment, disappointment, and unnecessary conflict. You judge the present through a past lens that no longer applies. This is exhausting and counterproductive. True clarity comes from seeing people as they are now and making decisions accordingly. Stop measuring people against memories. Measure them against their current alignment with your life and values. Every time you give in to nostalgia, you are avoiding reality. You are avoiding uncomfortable truths, the discomfort of change, and the responsibility to take control of your own emotional state. Nostalgia can feel safe, but safety is not progress. Comfort is not growth. The moment you release old versions, you open the door to authentic engagement. You can respond to people based on who they are now, not who you wish they were. You reclaim your power, your focus, and your energy. You are no longer a passive observer waiting for regression. You are an active participant in your own life, shaping reality rather than chasing illusions. Finally, nostalgia is seductive because it offers a false sense of control. You believe that by remembering, longing, and hoping you can recreate the past. But reality does not bend to memory. People do not revert to old versions to satisfy your longing. Waiting for someone to be who they were is surrendering control of your own life. True control comes from seeing reality clearly, adjusting your expectations, and acting in alignment with what exists now. Your growth, your choices, and your boundaries are what matter. Not nostalgia, not memory, and not illusions of the past. When you release old versions, you reclaim your life, your energy, and your peace. One of the hardest truths in life is that holding on to old versions of people stunts your own growth. When you constantly hope that someone will revert to who they used to be, you ignore your own evolution. You keep waiting for them to match a version of themselves that only existed in memory. This fixation distracts you from opportunities to grow, create, and thrive. Your energy is finite, and every second spent chasing the past is energy lost from building your future. Growth requires clarity, decisiveness, and awareness of reality. If you are preoccupied with old versions, you cannot engage authentically with the people who are present. Your potential is being siphoned by longing and nostalgia. Letting go is not weakness, it is a strategic choice for progress. When you hold on to outdated expectations, you are essentially anchoring yourself in stagnation. You are creating a mental cage where growth cannot occur because your mind is tethered to the past. People evolve, situations evolve, and your life evolves. If you refuse to adapt, you force yourself to remain stuck. Progress requires realignment, but you cannot realign with someone who refuses to meet you in the present. Every relationship has a shelf life, and every connection changes over time. Trying to rewind people to a previous version is like trying to force a tree to grow backward. It's impossible and exhausting. Recognizing this is the first step toward liberation and real growth. Your growth is directly impacted by the company you keep. If you surround yourself with people who are no longer aligned with your path, who have evolved in ways you cannot accept, you compromise your potential. Expecting someone to regress to a former version is a betrayal of your own evolution. You are clinging to familiarity instead of embracing alignment. Growth requires the courage to let go of what no longer serves you. It requires valuing your trajectory over sentimental attachment. When you release outdated expectations, you make room for relationships that support your vision. You start attracting people who are present, aligned, and capable of rising to the same level of growth as you. Many people confuse attachment with loyalty. They think that holding on to someone as they were is an act of love. But in reality, it is a form of stagnation disguised as devotion. Loyalty to memory does not yield growth, it yields frustration. People are not responsible for maintaining the versions of themselves that existed in your mind. They are responsible for their own journey, just as you are responsible for yours. By insisting that someone return to an old version, you are prioritizing your nostalgia over your evolution. Growth demands that you meet people where they are, not where you wish they were. This is not cruelty, it is clarity, and clarity is the engine of progress. Clinging to old versions also perpetuates cycles of disappointment. Every interaction carries the expectation that someone will behave as they once did. Every disagreement becomes magnified because it does not match your memory. This is emotional self-sabotage. You are training yourself to be reactive instead of proactive, waiting for a scenario that cannot exist. Growth requires the ability to act, adapt, and respond based on reality, not illusion. The more you cling, the more frustrated and powerless you feel. Releasing outdated expectations shifts your perspective. You stop chasing ghosts and start building the life and relationships that truly support your development. The hardest part of growth is the discomfort of release. Letting go of someone who has changed can feel like a loss, even if the person was no longer aligned with your path. But this discomfort is necessary. It is the signal that you are moving from illusion to reality. Personal evolution requires these moments of discomfort because they force you to reassess, realign, and recommit to your own trajectory. Every second you spend hoping for the old version is a second you are not investing in your growth. Discomfort is temporary, stagnation is permanent. Embracing reality, no matter how uncomfortable, creates momentum, clarity, and freedom. When you focus on growth, you begin to see relationships differently. People are not static, they are constantly evolving. Expecting someone to regress to fit your narrative is a form of denial. Growth is about alignment, not regression. You begin to evaluate connections based on who people are now, not who they were. This perspective allows you to make intentional choices about who deserves your time, attention, and energy. You stop pouring into relationships that no longer serve your path. You begin investing in people who match your current trajectory, creating synergy instead of tension. This clarity fuels progress and strengthens your ability to navigate life effectively. Growth also demands self-accountability. It is easy to blame others for not being who they used to be, but true power comes from taking responsibility for your own evolution. You cannot control someone else's growth, and wishing for the past only erodes your agency. When you release expectations of old versions, you reclaim your power. You focus on your own development, your goals, and your priorities. This mindset shift transforms disappointment into empowerment. You are no longer a victim of change, you are an active participant in shaping your life. Growth becomes intentional, strategic, and unstoppable. Holding on to old versions keeps you tied to patterns that limit your potential. You repeat old dynamics, recreate old frustrations, and compromise your own boundaries. Growth requires breaking these cycles. You must recognize when a person has changed in ways that are incompatible with your path. This awareness is not punitive, it is protective. It safeguards your energy and positions you to thrive. Releasing outdated expectations allows you to build relationships rooted in alignment, honesty, and mutual growth. You begin to operate from a place of clarity, confidence, and forward momentum. Ultimately, your growth depends on the courage to let go. Expecting old versions of people to return is a trap that keeps you anchored in nostalgia, fear, and stagnation. Real growth demands decisiveness, clarity, and the willingness to release what no longer serves your trajectory. It is not about resentment or rejection. It is about alignment, focus, and self-respect. The moment you stop clinging to the past, you free yourself to engage with reality, you reclaim your energy, your time, and your potential. Growth becomes inevitable when you prioritize your path over outdated expectations, embracing the people, opportunities, and realities that match your current journey. Expecting old versions of people to return is a subtle surrender of your power. When you place your happiness in the hands of someone else's regression, you are giving them control over your emotional state. True empowerment comes from taking ownership of your boundaries, your energy, and your emotional space. People evolve at their own pace, and the version you loved yesterday may not exist today. Clinging to nostalgia keeps you trapped in frustration and longing. You cannot force someone to regress, and wishing they would is a form of self-sabotage. When you accept who they are now, you reclaim authority over your life. You decide who belongs in your present and who does not. This clarity is not harsh, it is liberating, and it strengthens your sense of self. By taking ownership, you set the tone for the life and relationships you deserve. Most people underestimate the cost of waiting for old versions to appear. Time spent longing for regression is time lost in growth, creation, and alignment. Every second invested in nostalgia is a second diverted from pursuing your goals, your vision, and your purpose. Holding on to outdated expectations is not loyalty, it is stagnation disguised as hope. Growth requires action, decisiveness, and clarity. You cannot progress while anchored to the past. By releasing expectations, you free your energy to focus on what truly matters. The people who belong in your life will rise to meet your current level of energy and ambition. You create space for relationships that are real, supportive, and aligned. The cost of waiting is high, and the payoff of release is freedom, growth, and empowerment. Boundaries are the ultimate tool for protecting your emotional space. Expecting old versions is a subtle form of boundary violation. You are allowing someone else's evolution to dictate your emotions. Growth demands that you evaluate people based on who they are now, not who they were. When someone's current version no longer aligns with your values or trajectory, it is not rejection. It is preservation. You are not responsible for changing them, and they are not responsible for meeting your nostalgic desires. By setting clear boundaries, you protect your energy and position yourself for authentic, high-value connections. Respecting reality over memory is a radical act of self-love. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges to clarity, respect, and empowerment. When you enforce them, you attract people who honor your space and elevate your growth. Letting go of old versions is an act of courage. It requires confronting discomfort, releasing attachment, and accepting reality as it is. Most people avoid this step because it feels painful, but avoidance is the enemy of growth. True strength is choosing clarity over comfort, truth over illusion, and freedom over stagnation. Releasing outdated expectations does not mean cutting off love. It means engaging authentically with the present. You honor the evolution of others while prioritizing your own trajectory. Courageous clarity transforms disappointment into opportunity. It allows you to invest in people and experiences that align with your current life. Choosing courage ensures that your energy fuels progress rather than longing, and it sets the foundation for lasting fulfillment. Attachment to old versions often masquerades as hope, but hope without action is ineffective. You hope someone will return, but in doing so, you surrender agency. Life rewards clarity, decisiveness, and alignment. By waiting for regression, you abdicate control over your growth and happiness. Growth demands that you respond to reality, not memory. When you release outdated expectations, you reclaim your power, your focus, and your trajectory. You begin to prioritize relationships that are mutually supportive and aligned with your vision. Hope becomes active, grounded in reality, and strategic. This transformation is liberating, allowing you to engage fully with life, embrace opportunity, and align with people who elevate rather than drain you. Every interaction should be evaluated through the lens of present alignment. The old version you remember is gone, and expecting someone to revert is a form of denial. When you engage with people as they are today, you create authentic connections. You avoid wasted energy, unnecessary frustration, and misaligned attachment. This perspective empowers you to make intentional choices about who deserves your time and attention. Alignment is not static, it is dynamic, evolving with your growth. People who meet you at your current level enhance your journey, while those who resist evolution naturally drift away. This is not rejection, it is clarity in action. When you prioritize alignment over nostalgia, your life becomes more focused, intentional, and fulfilling. Your emotional space is precious, and expecting regression encroaches on it. Clinging to old versions allows others' evolution to dictate your feelings. True empowerment requires that you protect your peace. Release the expectation that anyone must conform to your memories. Accept reality as it is, and engage with people who reflect the values, energy, and alignment you need. This shift transforms relationships from draining to empowering. It ensures that your energy flows toward creation, growth, and impact. By honoring your own emotional sovereignty, you cultivate resilience and clarity. Protecting your space is not selfish, it is strategic. It positions you for meaningful connections and a life aligned with your vision. Letting go also enhances your ability to grow alongside others. When you release outdated expectations, you no longer try to pull people backward to satisfy nostalgia. You meet them where they are, which fosters authentic interaction and collaboration. Growth is not about controlling others, it is about evolving together. By embracing present reality, you become a catalyst for mutual progress. Relationships become a source of energy and inspiration rather than frustration and longing. This alignment creates momentum in every area of life, from personal development to professional achievement. Mutual growth transforms interactions into opportunities. Your clarity, boundaries, and presence elevate the people around you, creating synergy and fulfillment. Ending your attachment to old versions cultivates resilience. Life is unpredictable, and people will change in ways you cannot control. The strength to release outdated expectations builds emotional resilience, preparing you for future challenges. You develop the ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. You reclaim the narrative of your own life, making deliberate choices based on reality rather than nostalgia. This resilience fuels confidence, empowerment, and fulfillment. By trusting yourself to navigate relationships with clarity, you reduce drama, frustration, and wasted energy. Your emotional intelligence grows, and your capacity to create meaningful, aligned experiences increases exponentially. Resilience is not optional. It is essential for those committed to growth. The ultimate reward of letting go is freedom. Freedom from nostalgia, freedom from attachment, and freedom from expectation. When you release outdated versions of people, you reclaim your time, energy, and emotional bandwidth. You are no longer trapped in cycles of longing, disappointment, or stagnation. Life becomes an open canvas filled with authentic connections and aligned opportunities. You gain the ability to engage with people fully, invest in your growth, and prioritize experiences that matter. Freedom is the culmination of clarity, courage, and intentionality. When you stop expecting regression, you step into empowerment. Your life becomes guided by reality, alignment, and your highest potential. This freedom is transformative, and it is yours to claim.